So I'm going to go over some quick signs when you have observed somebody has suffered a narcissistic injury. When someone with narcissistic traits suffers a narcissistic injury, it typically means they have experienced a blow to their self-esteem, especially in a way that threatens their carefully constructed self-image. These injuries can result from rejection, which is the main one, even criticism to a lesser extent, or exposure of flaws, or even perceived slights, or sneak disses, or subliminals. And the response can be intense and often disproportionate because it activates deep-seated shame, insecurity, and rage. When the narcissist goes on a rage and a smear campaign, this is an indication that they have suffered a drastic narcissistic injury. And there's some common signs of someone who has suffered a narcissistic injury. Number one can be the sudden rage or aggression, right? This is referred to as narcissistic rage. It's a defense mechanism for them, reasserting control and superiority. And then also the victimhood narrative. They often portray themselves to be the victims. They frame themselves as victims, even when they are the aggressor and the instigator. They still want to take a step back and say, I'm the victim. Another one that's more popular is the projection and blame shifting, right? They'll accuse others of the very things they themselves are doing. And what it also shows is it protects their fragile ego by externalizing their responsibility. And they always typically have this black and white thinking, the splitting. There is no nuance or middle ground. There's no wiggle room or room for negotiation, etc. when you're dealing with a severe narcissist or even covert narcissist. They're very absolutist in their thinking. But I want to get into the smear campaign component. Why the narcissist resorts to smear campaigns after they're rejected, right? So when someone rejects a narcissist, especially someone they once liked or idealized, or that they tried to control, their internal narrative shatters, their sense of self shatters. And the narcissistic injury creates unbearable feelings of shame and powerlessness. So in order for them to cope with their sense of rejection and powerlessness, they launch smear campaigns. And what their goal is to reassert control over the narrative, and they want to punish the person who quote unquote wounded them. And they want to restore their own sense of superiority by degrading the other. It's about control. So common tactics in a narcissistic smear campaign, the number one, main one, is to spread lies and half-truths. They'll twist facts, they'll invent and create elaborate stories, and they'll distort the past events to make themselves look like they're victims. Like they'll claim that you were abusive or unstable or dishonest. Those are just some examples. But the spread lies, slander, that is the main component of the narcissist smear campaign. Also, what a lot of us are familiar with, they're flying monkeys. They'll have people that will, initiate and support, and, through the triangulation, right? Pitting people against each other. That's the main, weapon that they utilize. The character assassination is part and parcel with the smear campaign, ultimately to destroy your character. And they want to isolate you. They want to isolate you from a community. They want to isolate you so they feel like they have more control. Because they know your power base, your defense mechanism is going to be the people, the public, the community. So their ultimate goal is to destroy your character. That's why character assassination is very important. And then they spread lies and slander to try to get the public to go against you, right? Public or private attempts to destroy the target's credibility, reputation, or relationships. Then the next one, social media attacks, which is more prevalent of how they do it. Right? They just jump on. They can create a fake troll account, multiple bot and troll accounts and sock puppet accounts to initiate their social media attacks. Right? They'll be posting vague or direct accusations, sometimes using anonymous accounts or proxies. I would say most of the time they use anonymous accounts or proxies. Right? This is how they utilize their smear campaigns via social media to give the perception that it's some other anonymous person, but no, it's the same guy, right, who has multiple accounts. It's the same thing. They may also stalk and harass online. They may. The suggestion I'm looking, it's like, no, this is what they do. They stalk and harass. They stalk and harass. That's one of their main components to initiate basically more chaos. And the false allegations, like all of this is part and parcel. The false allegations, okay, social media attacks, the smear campaign, the character assassination, the flying monkeys where they kind of recruit people to help out the narcissist. That's like an extra added layer component, but that's not the main factor. The main factor is the individual who's initiating the smear campaign. And it's the false allegations is extremely relevant, and that's the tool they use with the character assassination. In extreme cases, narcissists may go as far as fabricating allegations like abuse, etc., to destroy someone's reputation. That's it. And then, like I said as well before, they always turn around and play the victim. They always turn around and play the victim. But the thing for the narcissist, it's not about the truth. It's about winning, right? And they're going to avoid accountability. That's why they use anonymous accounts, sock puppet accounts. They don't want to be held accountable. They don't want their name attached to their behavior they're initiating. So that's the main thing. But these are the common things with the narcissist. The signs: the narcissist has suffered a narcissistic injury, right? They're hyper-focused on the image control, the blame shifting, right? The victim narrative, and then the sudden rage. Like that's when you got someone triggered, when they're suddenly on this narcissistic rage, and then they initiate full-fledged their smear campaigns, right? They allege the smear campaign, and they're doing it towards you, the targeted individual, because they perceive you've wounded them. They feel hurt. They feel rejected by you. That's why they dedicate their entire social media page on a daily basis, basically stalking and tracking you, because they look at you as being so important, and they want to give you payback because you rejected them, so they want you to suffer. Again, they're spreading lies, social media attacks using sock puppet accounts and proxies, false allegations, character assassinations, and of course they recruit their flying monkeys. So this is just a brief example. We're going to go into a lot more of this because I basically have been given an opportunity to create this type of content. So we're going to hear a lot more on this, when someone has suffered a narcissistic injury and how the narcissist initiates in their smear campaigns after they feel rejected. So more on this later.